2005, the city launched the Canary Initiative and actually had a program in place in 2007. And there was a couple key goals there. The predominant goals was to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for this community by 30% by the year 2020, and that's from our 2004 baseline, and to further push into an 80% reduction by the year 2050. So more specifically, a subset of that is that we will become a 100% renewable electric utility in the year 2015. So right now we're at 89%, and we're doing the final work and contracts, and there's a lot of challenges associated with that, and I'm sure we'll get back to that, but that's sort of my brief overview. I love being service-minded, and I love that every day I show up to work and I have the tools to support and the staff that we make a difference in this community.
Yeah, good. Dave, I want to ask you one question.
Sure.
Is it unusual that the director of utilities for a municipality would have a mission to manage and maintain that municipality's water and electric resources, and also include initiating policy that reduces greenhouse gases like the Canary Initiative program? Would you see that in other municipalities?
I have not seen it in any of the places that I've worked in Colorado or any of the other entities I'm familiar with on the Front Range. Usually those are pretty distinct type missions. And on the electric utility, you're really looking at the cores of delivering electric service safe and reliable. And then on the environmental side, you're pushing into many different initiatives. So this is a great melding of things that are typically done just separately. I think it adds greater strength in our mission and our ability to proceed.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Brooke Levan from Sustainable Settings.
Well, I'm perfectly unqualified for what I do. I have a master's in fine art and was an artist professionally and taught in academia for a while. And then I went to China in '96, and I saw environmental degradation caused by humans that I'd never witnessed before. So I took my wife and I took our 5-year-old child on a trip, and we followed the Yellow River from source to mouth, which was about 4,000 miles. And that's a whole nother story, but what we saw and what happened to us in China made us come home and change course. And we came to the valley, to the Anderson Ranch as artists, Anderson Ranch Art Center. We did a body of work. We had a show at the Aspen Museum and down in Boulder. And then I wrote up a 6-page proposal and a budget page, sat on a boulder with an angel in Woody Creek, and told him what we needed to do. And he said, we all need to do this. How much do you need? This is the valley. So it was 185,000 startup, and we're 17 years old. We now have a ranch that we are lucky to work with, 240 acres outside of Carbondale. It's a little gem. The soil gets better every year, and we're harvesting milk, meat, eggs, vegetables. We're feeding people and educating a lot of people. About 10,000 visitors a year come. I don't know what else you want.
Good. Is that growing, that number, 10,000, as the word gets out?
Well, I'm here with 2 county officials, so that may cause trouble. So we try to keep the numbers down appropriately. Or that may encourage different things. But
different zoning?
Yeah, no, of course. We also spread the word in different ways. And we write and read and talk and do these other things. So.
Yeah. Good, good. Thanks, Brooke. And Zane Kessler.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I run the Thompson Divide Coalition based out of Carbondale. We are a group of farmers and ranchers, local governments, sportsmen, a bunch of strange bedfellows all at the same table, working to protect a pristine area of public lands here in the White River National Forest, which, as you mentioned, is the most visited and most recreated national forest in the country. More people come to this valley and spend more dollars on recreation and tourism-related activities than any other place in the region. And with that in mind, this coalition of folks, far before I ever showed up on the scene, recognized that about 250,000 acres of our national forest were leased for oil and gas development. And that really kicked off a community-wide effort to try and pursue some market-based solutions and some innovative solutions to try and deal with this. We, as a group, have decided we're not going to pursue the more litigious routes that most conservation initiatives end up finding themselves within, and have offered to make leaseholders whole on their investments in an effort to protect this area that supports the livelihoods of countless ranchers, hunting outfitters, fly fishing guides. And so we're really trying to take a new look at conservation-minded efforts and see if we can find some middle ground.
Good. What was the genesis of the coalition?
The genesis of the coalition, I think, was the cattlemen and the recreationalists realizing that a vast swath of the land that supports their livelihoods had been leased for development. Mm-hmm. And it really was a conversation that started at the kitchen table of ranchers and community leaders like Dorothea Ferris and others in this room. And it has grown into possibly the most unified coalition on an environmental issue in the state. A couple of quick indicators. One, anytime you've got Garfield County and Pitkin County agreeing on something, you're probably onto something pretty unique. But it goes beyond that. It's these strange bedfellows that I mentioned. It's at a town hall meeting for Thompson Divide, you'll see ranchers sitting next to mountain bikers and sportsmen next to environmentalists. And I think the idea and the genesis was the fact that everybody had skin in the game here, and we were all going to stand together to protect it.
Right, yeah, that's interesting. When did you get involved?
I got involved just about 2 years ago. I had worked on energy and natural resource policy for the United States Senate for 6 years prior to that, and unfortunately there wasn't much coming across my desk anymore, so like a lot of people, decided to start focusing on state and local solutions.
Yeah, good. Good, thank you. I want to ask you about unique challenges you face in pursuit of your mission. You get up every day, you're excited, and then there's the reality of it. So if you share with us a couple of those. Brooke, let me start with you. You already mentioned 10,000 people in the popularity versus zoning issues. So.
Well, that's a challenge, but and this will be interesting for some of you who know our history, especially with the county, but there's a lot of support from them, and they like what we're doing, and they're helping us on a lot of levels. And at first, maybe it was me, and I saw it as a challenge, and but they've also come around a lot too, and recognized that we have a lot of work to do, and we need to look at regulations, and we need to do things that move some things out of the way to get the right thing done. And we've had great support from CORE. Thank you, Randy Udall, and all those that put that together. We've built, everything we're doing is designed to run on the sun, so but CORE sees that and helps that support. So it's a continual search for funds and to build the model and to build what we hope is a replicable model. We're not here to try to dominate the raw milk market or the grass-fed beef market or anything like that, but to present a diversified model. And so funding's always a challenge.
Yeah, funding.
But also working with the county, I've been on the greenhouse regulatory group, trying to help them understand that a greenhouse is not a barn, is not a shed or a separate kind of thing, and how can we get growing spaces throughout the county at different scales. What is that? They have to regulate. They have to figure out how to do that. So things like that.
Is the challenge then convincing the public bodies that your mission is appropriate and substantial in order to move the endeavor forward?
Sorry.
Is your mission, is the unique challenge then the discussion with the policymakers and convincing them of your mission in moving it forward? Is it the politics around
Yes, and
the
time.
mission?
And time takes time to move the culture. I mean, we've been at it for 17 years just here in the valley. When I went initially to the NRCS, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Service, they don't give grants, but they have cost share programs and things that help ranchers and farmers do things. It was like, we don't do any of that experimental stuff. 2 years ago, they came to me and they said, you're now doing all this stuff that we want ranchers and farmers to do. Would you just come in and we'll check off the list and we'll write you a check? So that's a big swing.
Yeah, good.
So it's hanging in there and keeping the fire burning.
Anything you want to say to Steve, County Commissioner Childs, while we have him here? Good, thanks, Brooke. Dave? Questions about unique challenges.
Unique challenges. So I'll be a little specific. I mentioned the goal of 100% renewable energy in 2015. There were challenges across different fronts. I think they probably play out in time, in existing structures and policy and politics. So on time, achieving that goal has taken years and decades to get to where we're at. And sometimes it's difficult to make sure that all your information, your supporters are brought along such a long time frame. And to keep that type of support and keep that type of understanding, why it's essential to do different aspects of it. On structure, the electric utility industry as a whole doesn't really set itself up to push forward a single entity as 100% renewable utility. And so we've been successful not only by different actions we've had in developing several hydroelectric facilities in the valley in the 1980s, to some solar PV, to early adoption of wind in the early 2000s. But it was essential with our partnership with our wholesale supplier to get their support to allow us to do something different, to be a little creative, and to not fit the standard mold that here's the service that you're provided and here's the rate that you pay. So we've had to push into that real hard. And then on the politics side, Aspen, while it is a small community in numbers, it's a very powerful and astute community. And there are a lot of people here that are extremely active and engaged, and not everybody always shares the same opinions. And so at times you'll have the most tremendous support you couldn't even begin to imagine. At other times you run into walls and barriers that you couldn't have reasonably anticipated. And so I think to be wise and strategic, never lose sight that for anything that you believe is absolutely amazing, that who would ever think different? Well, there are people that think different, and they have different opinions, and the sooner you can reach out and to understand and to engage them, the better opportunity you have with trying to either alleviate their concerns or even make them a supporter at some point. But those are probably the three greatest challenges that I see in our broader mission.
Yeah, good. How's your mayor?
The mayor,
You have to answer.
the mayor is amazing. I think what needs to be touched on is leadership. And so if you think of something that we've been doing for decades, we've had mayors and councils and mayors and councils and mayors and councils. And you need to keep mayors and councils, all that group, on board as you go. And so you're sort of re-educating, and when they come on board, they also have different, let's call it priorities, that may not have been the priorities of the others. And so we're very fortunate that we've had a very cohesive change of management over the years and has not lost sight of our broader environmental stewardship goals.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Dave. It's one of those challenges between public and private sector. The question often comes up, why government can't run more like business. Well, one of the reasons is leadership changes every 2 years, at least in our local government. It's not necessarily the case in the private world. Thanks, Dave. Zane, about unique challenges.
You know, I think our challenge, and this may sound funny coming from the director of an environmental group, but is holding the middle ground. Those strange bedfellows that I mentioned earlier, they come from a variety of backgrounds and interests, and you know, we are trying to find middle ground solutions to help conserve a valuable piece of public lands. We've run economic analysis, and we've identified, this small area of public land supports 300 jobs and $30 million in recurring annual economic impacts from hunting, fishing, ranching, recreation. Those jobs feed families. But at the same time, the approaches we're taking, these middle ground solutions that we're trying to pursue, are not always popular with the fringe. The mantra that I think most of us have really gotten behind on this is, it's not that energy development can't occur anywhere, it's that it shouldn't occur everywhere. There are certain places, whether it's carbon-based fuels or renewables, and this may not be popular with this crowd, but there are certain places that should not be developed. And we've taken hits from the left and from the right for those positions. But ultimately, I think to a Tony Blair quote, the only problem with being a bridge is that you get walked on. So we're going to hold that middle ground as long as we're all around. And ultimately, I think that's the source of our strength is in that middle ground. This is, as far as I know, the only high-profile oil and gas issue that's gotten the support of Governor Hickenlooper and our 2 U.S. senators and others. And it's because we've tried to approach this in a business-like fashion, as practical as possible. And I'll continue to be that bridge. So.
Good. Thank you. And Steve?
One of the biggest challenges facing Pitkin County is the perception that other people have of us around the state. They think of Pitkin County as a not-in-my-backyard community that won't allow different things to happen. Like, we don't want to have natural gas drilling in the Thompson Divide, and people don't want to have the Castle Creek hydro plant on the banks of Castle Creek in Aspen, things like that. So that is a big challenge to overcome when we're communicating with people around the state. Pitkin County actually has a really long history of doing very progressive things and being a leader in different energy and transportation fields. We actually have, I'll focus on 2 different things that we really spend a lot of time on. One is the Pitkin County Airport, that is rare that it's located just 4 miles from downtown, and there's no other place in the country where you can land in an airport and be at a world-class ski resort 4 miles from downtown. We have about the 3rd busiest airport in the whole state. Sometimes it's 4th, sometimes it's 3rd, and it's very dangerous to land at the airport. Now, a big challenge we're facing right now is the aircraft that are allowed to land there, the commercial jet aircraft that are limited to a 95-foot wingspan, are no longer being built, and all the new commercial jet aircraft have wingspan greater than 95 feet. Now, for us to remain as a competitive ski resort here, that means we need to make changes at the airport. If we can move the runway over 80 feet to the west and make it a wider runway, then we would be allowed to land these they're not really bigger aircraft, but they have a longer wingspan, and it's all based on FAA regulations. Some people are upset of the price tag on a new runway of about $130 million, but the upside of this is that the new aircraft that will be coming to Aspen in the next generation, once we get the runway built, use 1/3 less fuel to fly than the current aircraft. So they're very fuel efficient. Another thing at the airport, I asked if we could get biofuel for aviation fuel at the airport, thinking maybe we could require that's what we sell. The FAA won't let us do that. We could offer that kind of fuel, but we can't require everybody use it. So we'd have to have the petroleum-based jet fuel as well. We could offer the green fuel also. That's something coming in the future.
That's innovative. Steve, you mentioned the not in my backyard attitude. Is that more prevalent today than it was, say, when your father served, do you think?
Probably so. When we moved here, the whole Roaring Fork Valley, including Aspen, was based on farming and ranching, logging, mining, a little bit of Aspen Music Festival, some downhill skiing, but it was a different atmosphere then. We were more just like a regular county from different parts of the state. Now we're, an elite, viewed as an elite world-class resort. People have a different perception of us. One of the results of all our sort of exclusiveness is land prices are so high here. Land is precious. And at the landfill, about 25 years ago, they gave about 25 years of life left was the prediction for our landfill. And nobody thought there ever would be another landfill, so the previous commissioners had to do something.
Steve, I want to ask you a question, and perhaps you all could weigh in on this. How do you manage the perhaps contradiction in values from a county that is attracting those with core values different than the ones that made the county the great place that's attracting them in the first place?
Well, the core values still exist here. There haven't been too many ranchers or farmers elected as county commissioners in Pitkin County. I'm the sixth one that I can count in sort of the history that people remember. But there are still people with mud on their boots and manure. It's not always mud, it's manure oftentimes. With real practical experience and real life things. And that's what this community really is made of, is real, just ordinary people.
It's a challenge. You see the character of the county changing, though, and it's a challenge to maintain the values that made it the great place it is. Is that what you're suggesting?
It's not hard to maintain our values. We hold high values here. We have high ethical standards, and we defend them on a statewide basis at a lot of meetings of county commissioners.
But you also made reference to this not my backyard attitude. So the community, the composition or community sense makeup of the county, I think is...
Well, one of my strategies for that perception, that not in my backyard thing, is, and the county is looking at putting a large-scale solar farm on the county property at the landfill. I think that would go a long way to show other people around the state that, we're aware of things and we do have solutions. We're not just against this and this and this, but we're for really positive and progressive things.
Good. Thank you, Steve. Burke, what do you think?
Well, the county sets limits. We all need to set limits. That makes it tough. That increases property cost. It does different things, but it also limits growth. And we got to get off growth. We got to figure out another whole economy. So there's things going on at the county level that I really respect, and that's one of them. Doesn't make it easy to live here sometimes. It makes it just challenging. But those are things that we all have to start facing. And you have a short list, if you'd share it with us, of starting with the Ecological Bill of Rights. Could you tell us about what the county's adopted?
Yeah, there are three big documents that I am aware of that I was able to dig up. One came from the year 2000, the Ecological Bill of Rights, and it has a bunch of items. One of them is the right to efficient and renewable use of energy, is just one line item. That was followed in 2008, and this kind of paralleled when the Canary Initiative was being brought into being by the city. So 2008, we had an energy action plan. And then finally, in a newspaper article I read, after 6 years of talking about it, the county finally in 2012 passed a climate protection resolution. We do things by resolutions. So some of these pieces of paper are resolutions. It's just something that the way the county works and the city works. Ordinances and resolutions are how we accomplish a lot of what we accomplish. But in those things, it laid out an action plan, and many of them are, very similar to the city's action plan. It has to do with waste reduction at the landfill and transportation systems, including bicycles and the bus system and trails. And
Steve, are those posted on the county's website? Is the Ecological Bill of Rights there?
you can find them.
They are.
I was actually looking for the original resolutions, and I was able to find them in the county archives on the internet.
Good. Okay. Good. Thank you, Zane. I want to go back and ask you the same question, because you answered. The question was the genesis of the Thompson Divide Coalition, and you emphasized that people with competing values came together to pursue this common mission. And the question we were discussing was how to kind of maintain your core set of values when those people moving here don't perhaps share them.
Yeah, I think the way that we've approached that is again in the same way that any business would approach it. We're involved in negotiations with oil and gas industry members. We're working with federal agencies, and ultimately it's building a case and building a record for why this area is deserving of conservation. We've run economic analyses showing the existing jobs and economic outputs associated with existing uses on the land. We've hired petroleum geologists to come in, trying to think outside of the box compared to a typical environmental group, if you will. So really, I think trying to treat it as much like a business type organization as possible, while also striving to hold on to that middle ground that I mentioned earlier. This is an area that's valuable for a variety of reasons. It's home to 15 different watersheds that feed the Colorado River, the Roaring Fork, the Gunnison, the Crystal Rivers. It's 3 of the most sought-after hunting units in the state. These 3 units generate 20,000 big game hunting licenses every year. Those are hunters that come to our community. They eat in our restaurants. They stay in our hotels. It's kind of scary, but they buy a lot of booze at our liquor store. But really trying to highlight the existing values and making the case for why this area is deserving of conservation, because every place is special to somebody. But it's really trying to bring together those strange bedfellows, hold on to the middle ground, and build the case for why it's important to be protected.
Yeah, good. Dave, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, a couple thoughts come to mind of sort of how we live our values and how those values help influence others coming to the community. And so the first one that came to mind is sort of a joint program by the county and the city called REMP, or Renewable Energy Mitigation Program. And so that started back in the year 2000, January 2000. What it is that whenever you go to build a structure, a home, a business here in this valley, it has an energy footprint. And if that energy footprint of what you're trying to design and propose exceeds an allotted amount, you must implement certain mitigation measures. And if you're unable to, or you choose not to, then you would pay a fee associated with that. And that fee is actually something that is administered by our Community Office of Resource Efficiency. And so they basically take that money and then roll it back into the community to do those very types of mitigations, to conserve energy, to have other types of conservation and efficiency programs. So it's an excellent way of how you can have community-based values on your environment, environmental stewardship, perpetuate into different areas, because we have that. We have at the electric utility, we have rates that are in tiers, and those tiers promote conservation and efficiency. So it's wise, it's economically beneficial for you to do that. And so I think those are just some examples of how we work together to really create a different environment here. It goes to our green building energy codes. And so just everywhere you look within the city and the county, you sort of see those core values in the environmental stewardship just perpetuated.
Good. Thanks, Dave. We have about 9 minutes left, and I want to ask Brooke and Zane one question about success, and then we'll open the floor for questions if there are any. My questions to Brooke and Zane is, for your particular organizations, what does success look like Zane?
Success for the Thompson Divide Coalition looks like protecting a valuable piece of public lands and the livelihoods that those lands support. That can come in any array of different outcomes, but ultimately it's seeking long-term protections for these public lands and eliminating the existing threat that is posed by oil and gas leasing in the area. Easier said than done in some cases, but we've made a lot of progress. We've got a unified coalition. We've got support at nearly every level of government. Every affected county and municipality has endorsed this approach. And so I think for us, success ultimately is protecting a pristine and valuable landscape, but doing it in an innovative way.
Yeah, good. Good. Will the fight stop should you reach your mission, or will it be expanded?
My job is to work myself out of a job.
Okay, good. Brooke?
Well, we have grandparents bring their grandkids by to harvest an egg from under a chicken weekly. We have a lot of people come for courses and school groups. Busloads of kids come. We have corporate retreats. We measure our success in epiphanies and change lives.
Good. Brooke, we'll go to questions. I want to ask you one term that's used around sustainable settings. You often talk about whole system strategies. Define that for us.
Well, where's Amory? Amory could do it better than anybody. Thank you, RMI, for promoting that idea and for putting it into words. But whole systems really is about, really considering the whole and looking at everything. Amory has better stories than I do about taking the mosquito out of the environment, and what it does. But it's really about looking at the social, the culture, working with people together to build something. It's about the energy, where it comes from and where it goes. It's about government and governance and regulation and things like that. It's about my little micro buddies and that help, that do the real work and build the soil. So it's really understanding that. And so, what we've tried to do at the ranch is put these basic systems together working again and to build a diversified model and to see, yes, we have renewable energy, yes, we have green building, yes, we have organic food production and all these other things, but it's really the space between those things and the energy between those things.
Good. And it's contrary to the concept of specialization, which is what kind of how corporate America is driving us.
Far more benefits
than
the parts.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. We have a few minutes for questions. Dorothea Ferris.
I'm Andy Quiet. My wife, Pastor Jane, wanted me to ask you fellas a question. She isn't here today herself because she had her knee worked on yesterday, so it would be healed up in time for ski season. As a result, I drove her Volt here today, but I have nowhere to charge it. Now, her question, and the opportunity I'm giving you to help explain some of the diverse pressures that you work with in trying to be a public servant, is give us an update. What is the status of the core grant to Aspen for a recharging station for electric vehicles that has been parked, not acted on for over a year by the city? I think Jane met with you fellas, I think with Dave, I think with you, Mayor. At one point there was a proposal to put it in the Rio Grande parking structure and then charge people $10 a day to park there if they wanted to charge their electric vehicle. The core grant, as I understand it, was as a public service to provide a charging station to further the consciousness and presence of electric vehicles within Aspen. So what is the current status, and what are we doing to resolve that? Thank you.
Thank you. The question is, more charging stations in Aspen, essentially?
No, you've got money from CORE that is being sat upon, and you haven't done anything with it to set up a charging station that it was designed for.
Thank you. Dave, can you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm proud to say that it is set up, and it is in the Rio Grande. And if you pull in through the entrance and you look a little ahead and to your left, it's actually there. You're right, it has taken a bit of a time because that system has morphed. At one point, it was we were looking at doing different charging stations out on the street, and there was sort of the fundamental conflict between do you have cars there ready to charge all the time, or do you have a vacant parking spot there waiting for a car to be charged while others are looking for charging. And so we did place it in the Rio Grande Center. We've also been really active with Tesla over the last several months. We're also working with them to get multiple stations here in town. And with a building upgrade to the Rio Grande, we'll also put in another charging station there.
Currently, do you still need to pay for parking to go into the station to get to it?
Oh, I believe that you are paying for parking, but you're not paying for the energy. And it's back to sort of how do we encourage, growth of that type of vehicle type of energy use.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you for the question. Steve, very quickly.
Also, at the airport parking, there are plans to put a couple of charging stations there.
Great, good. Thank you. Zane?
No, I think we have at least, do we have time for one more question?
Yeah. Dorothea wants a question. Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, Dorothea.
Just very quickly, we've talked about how long it takes to accomplish the kinds of things everyone here is trying to accomplish. We have talked about how we need local control. As I look here, we have from the county level every year, why are you here? Quality of life. And that's maintained by being a bit elitist, I think some people have called us, or making it difficult. We have sustainable settings because land that was going to be developed with 13 monster homes was purchased by Open Space, which is a Pitkin County operation, and then turned into sustainable settings. Thompson Divide, when we sat around, we thought 1 year, maybe 2, this will all be over. And it's probably the only nonprofit I know that's trying to get out of business. And I just want to ask, how do you best bring all of these people and this brilliance to the organizations, the cities, the counties, the organizations that need to give support to what this group is trying to do and get it done locally and on the state and on up? How do you involve yourself in doing that?
Is the question clear?
Yep.
Okay, you guys, we have about 1 minute. We have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Steve?
A lot of what the county does is driven by our staff. If the county commissioners give direction to the staff to, on a policy change, then the staff, we have an awesome staff working for the county, and they bring forward ideas and resolutions, and then if they're good ideas, we go ahead and act on them.
Great, thank you, Steve. Dave?
We have, let's call it a bi-directional interaction with our city council. So city council will give us goals and direction which we'll actively pursue, and at the same time we're part of also a strategic and creative think tank that are bringing things forward for their consideration.
Good, thanks. Brooke?
Wes Jackson from the Land Institute came out and spoke in 2004 at the ranch, and on a break he said, "So how long do you think you're going to do this?" And I said, "Maybe 20 years." He said 40.
Zane?
I think effective and efficient communication, ultimately, whether you're a business owner or a local government or a nonprofit director, never stop making the case and always work to mobilize your base. So.
Good, great. Thank you, Steve Childs, Dave Hornbacher, Brooke Levan, and Zane Kessler. Thank you, everybody.